It is saying, after watching Myth Vision, I've pondered the question of Paul being as fictional as Muhammad and serving as an after-the-fact justification for doctrine. Your thoughts on this? I wouldn't know, actually. I mean, you think Paul himself is... I think that's like... No, I don't... I mean, I haven't seen anybody serious suggesting that Paul himself is fictional. No, I don't think so. I might be wrong, but who are these people? Like, you, Myth Vision, are these, I mean, most non-religious biblical scholars accept that Jesus's story itself is based on someone's real. And now you're saying not only, so for you to think Paul is fictional, like you're saying both Jesus and Paul are fictional. I mean, are you saying Paul's story is fictional? I mean, it's very possible that Paul's story was changed or manipulated, but to say Paul himself was fictional, I think that's a extraordinary... I might be wrong about this, but that seems like an extraordinary claim, given that Jesus himself is mostly understood by most non-religious scholars to be a real character, and not his stories, not what he said. They don't think it's real, but the fact that he existed is something that people understand as real. I think like some people in this Myth Vision or Mythicon, or I don't know what it is, some people have taken their skepticism to conspiratorial level. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, I'm just appeal to the scholars. Like, are these people suggesting that both Paul and Jesus is a myth? Because that seems like extraordinary, guys. From where we sit as non-scholars, unless you take a lot of time researching these stuff, and when I'm saying researching, I'm not talking about like referring to primary sources, because you're not trained to analyze primary sources, okay? I'm talking about analyzing secondary sources by people that are taken seriously in the field, okay? As non-scholars, we apply Occam's razor, because Occam's razor and appeal to the authority. And again, this is not a fallacy. People say like, Armin, you're appealing to authority. That's a logical fallacy. No, because this is justified authority, okay? I'm appealing to justified authority, and it's more likely than when there is a semi-consensus in academia about a certain thing. It's more likely for that to be true than false. Is it likely that it's false? Yes. If it wasn't false, there would be no change in academia about people's understanding. Like, it would be remain still. Obviously, people's understanding about how people's conclusions constantly change in academia, right? So we can't... I'm not saying to take it as gospel, but as non-academics, the responsible thing to do is to give the highest way to what most scholars are saying. Again, I'm not saying just accept it as blind faith and say this is true. It is just the most likely explanation, unless you yourself are an expert and based on your years of research and years of analysis is introducing something that contradicts academia, but you, because being an expert in the field, think you're justified and introducing something new and putting it out there to be reviewed by other experts who even if they don't agree with you, don't take you as a joke, take you seriously in the field, but they have reasons to disagree with you. Like, that's how we proceed with coming up with conclusions like this. We can't just be like, I attended the conference and people had these ideas that seem to have contradicted others, most of the other scholars, and they seem to be justified, so I'm changing my views on this. You know what I mean? Even if you happen to be right, you're not justified to have this belief. You know what I mean? You could be unjustifiably correct. So for example, let's say 99% of the scholars in a certain field believe one thing, okay? And there's wacko person that is, for some weird reason, managed to get his doctorate and something like that, but everyone considers him joke, and he's saying something that contradicts everybody else, right? But let's say that he's right. Actually, let me say it. Let me actually change my analysis, okay? Let's say actually there is 10% of serious academics that disagree with 90% of them. Let me not dismiss them as wacko people, okay? There's 90% of scholars have certain views, and there's 10% who have a different view, okay? I'm not an expert in the field. I look at and see 90% of the scholars agree with each other, okay? I apply Occam's razor, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna appeal to most of the authority, and I'm gonna think that there's a higher chance that the 90% is correct, okay? In this situation, if you're not an expert and you go with the 10% because you just feel like they're right, or because you're a rebel and you just like it when people are showing it, like contradicting the authority or whatever people have agreed to. If you're just like, your rebellious nature just goes with the 10%, okay? If you or just because you like their arguments without being an expert yourself, okay? If you just go with that 10%, and then you happen to be correct, and like let's say that these 10% manage to prove that they're correct, and it comes and the 90% accepts defeat, and at some point now the new understanding is that whatever the 10% suggested, okay? Even if you happen to be correct, you are unjustifiably correct, okay? There are, let me give you an example of, let's say like you live in a world, like go back in time and there's no knowledge, there's no information that suggests that the planet is round or semi-sphere shape, okay? But you just come and suggest that the Earth is round and not flat. And your reasoning is that the Earth is round. Again, I'm not comparing this to those academics. I'm just trying to suggest that just because somebody is correct, that doesn't mean it's justified, right? You're saying the Earth is round because the Earth is the head of a god, and the head is round, so the Earth must be round, okay? There are ways for you to be unjustifiably correct. And again, this does not resemble what I was suggesting when it comes to the academics, because those people are more serious than this. But I'm just giving an example that being correct, that doesn't mean you were justified to have that opinion, okay? You could be justifiably wrong and unjustifiably correct by accident, okay? You could weigh the evidence and use Occam's razor and think like this belief is more likely to be correct, and then happen to be wrong. But because of Occam's razor and because of the way you analyze things, you were justified to hold the belief that you held, even if you were incorrect. And you could sometimes accidentally be correct, but unjustifiably so, because you just went with your feelings or whatever like that. And if you go with your feelings or other ways of coming up with conclusions that are not justifiable, you happen to sometimes get it right?
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.